Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Moving Markets Podcast. It is Monday, September the 15th, 2025. At the time of this recording, the stock market has been closed for about an hour and 20 minutes. So we're well past the close of the market today, and pretty decent day overall in the markets. The Dow Jones didn't do anything to really impress, but it was positive. So nothing wrong at all with nothing wrong ever with the fact that it's up. That's a good thing, but not up dramatically. A little over 0.1%, 49 points to the upside. S&P had a decent day, 0.5% up. Right? You've heard me say over and over and over again that 0.5% in a single day is a solid, good move for any one of these indexes. It's a bad move if it's to the downside. NASDAQ up almost a full percent, up over 207 points. So the NASDAQ had a really decent day. The Russell was up. I was surprised. We don't follow this a lot. I mean, I certainly pay attention to it. I'm always somewhat aware of what it's doing, but I'm surprised that the VIX was up a little bit today. I think that's just this is the fear index, volatility index. I think that's just people getting kind of worked up and ready, anticipation for the Fed announcement on Wednesday, and that's really for the remainder of this week. That's really what the whole rest of the week is going to be all about, is what is the Fed going to do. And I believe most people are in the camp that it's a foregone conclusion that the Fed is going to cut rates on Wednesday. I believe if we look at the Fed Fund Rates Watch tool, I mean, you literally, this might be small on your screen, but literally 100% of the betting market is saying that the Fed is going to cut rates on Wednesday. 95, almost 96% are saying it's going to be a quarter of a point. There's still that 4.2% that think it might be a half a point or 50 basis points. I don't know. I'm torn. I will be a little bit surprised if it's a 50 basis point cut, but not like crazy surprised. I don't think that's what will happen. I'm gonna phrase that in a slightly different way. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but I am not going to be even a little bit shocked if that is what happens. I think several Fed members have commented over the last week and signaled that a rate cut is coming. What I think is going to be the bigger tell for how the markets are going to react for the second half of trading on Wednesday and throughout the day on Thursday and Friday is what they say about October and December. Those two meetings, I think, is going to be a bigger deal than what they actually do on this meeting. I think it's completely baked in that you're going to get a quarter of a point rate cut. I think more than that might be needed right now, where inflation is still looking fairly tame, where tariffs have not caused inflation to spike up or really had any measurable impact on inflation. I think you could do a bigger cut. I think the markets, if you get a 50 basis point cut, I think the markets react in a very strong bullish move. If you get a 25 basis point cut and something, it doesn't have to be a guarantee, but something with a little bit of clarity about the probability of two more cuts in these next two meetings. I think that could also be a catalyst to a push upward in the market. But if you get 25 basis points and Jerome Powell really muddies the water about October and December, or is real non-committal, or too wimpy. I can't think of a better word. If he's too wimpy in his message, if he's asked about October and December, and his answer is something to the effect of, "Well, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, or we can't be too quick to talk about rate cuts," or even if he just tries to stay really ambiguous and say, "Well, we just have to remain data dependent and see what the data brings." And the people are going to ask more specific questions. They're going to ask, if this and if this, then will you do this? And he has an opportunity to either dance around it or say, yeah, look, this, this cut was needed. And if he could be as clear, it wouldn't have to be any more clear than, if we stay on the current trajectory, we could do two more cuts this year. Something as simple as that. And I think you'll see the markets initially react favorably. But if it's just a 25 basis point cut, and then you don't get something a little more definitive, I mean, look at this. Look at this rally we've had. This is, I mean, we're talking. Um, I've got a 6 month chart up here, so uh, that's 4 of the last 6 months basically. I mean, you've got since April. Remember when we hit that low point in April? It's just been there've been a couple little blips, an occasional few days, or even, I think it was almost a week right here that we had down. Probably the better part of a week right there that we had down. It's It's been a couple little blips, but that has been an incredibly steady upward market, to be touching new all time highs every other day, it seems like, or at least every week. So uh, anything other than the best possible news, you're going to see this market correct a little bit. Maybe the S&P comes back to 6,000. I think a 10% correction is not out of the question through the rest of September and maybe early October. That would be a pretty steep correction if it came in the last 2 weeks of September. But then I think when earnings start to come in October, I think this market is really going to boom through October, November, and December. Um, it's gonna be interesting. I'm anxious to see what Powell says. You've already got the betting market predicting a rate cut. Pretty strong indication that the betting market sees a rate cut coming in October, and then also in December. So we'll see if that actually plays out. But this week it's all gonna come down to Jerome. Now there are some other things pushing the markets. Trump. Uh, I haven't read this yet. That's actually the first I've seen of this. Um, Trump indicated, and Scott Besson indicated, that there is a framework of a deal in place for TikTok. Um, there's They said that trade talks are going really good with China. That was a little bit of the catalyst to the upside, especially for the Nasdaq today. Um, the congressional budget chief saying that Trump's tariffs are fueling inflation. This guy should be fired. He should be without a job. The Congressional Budget Office is pretty much wrong, and they're political. They're liberal. They're pretty much wrong on everything they say. Their method of scoring for tax cuts and other budget stuff is archaic. It's inaccurate. It factors in things that are less predictable and doesn't factor in things that should be factored in. So this guy, as far as I'm concerned, is a clown. Um, he should go. I'd like to see him go. I'd like to see that whole office dissolved and have it handled some different way. But oh well. But anyways, there's a couple other things going on that could move things this week, but really everyone's going to be a little tentative until the Fed meeting and the decision and the commentary about rates on Wednesdays. So we'll see what happens, see what plays out. We put on a new trade today on Amazon for the SOS spread trade side of things. I did a very simple, not a real long term, but a very simple bull call calendar. Can't type right here. I think Amazon is going to continue, even if it continues to be a little bit jagged like this. I think they're going to continue this upward trend. If they dip a little bit on what the Fed does at the end of this week, I think it'll be a very temporary dip, and then they'll move back up, and we'll make an adjustment and roll a short call down pretty quickly if Amazon starts to falter a little bit. But really easy trade. Last time we did a bull call calendar on Amazon, we netted about a 17% return, and we were in the trade just about a month. I expect to do a little bit better and a little bit faster this time around. So We'll see how that plays out, but that should have been an easy trade to get into. And if you didn't get into it today during the trading day, you can still get in tomorrow pretty easily. I only got one new trade out on the on the triple play side. I plan on doing some additional trades before the week is over, but everything I looked at, I either got a little bit nervous about what might happen after Wednesday, or I just didn't see numbers that I liked. I looked at a couple of other long iron condors besides the diamond one that we sent out. We closed the diamond trade that we opened a week ago, didn't get enough movement, and the short call was too close to the money. A turn on Wednesday afternoon could have just absolutely destroyed that trade because it would have only been open until Friday, and we would have had to bail out really quickly or try and do an adjustment. So we closed that and then opened a new one for Friday with strike prices much closer to where the stock is trading right now. And so I like where we're positioned now. We took a little tiny loss, about 1%. I took about 1.25% loss, so not pretty negligible, but just didn't like the way that trade was set up going into the announcement on Wednesday. I will continue to look for some other trades on the triple play side of things before the week is over. Our Apple trade is looking good on triple play. Some of you are still in the Home Depot trade, and that's actually looking really good with a couple of adjustments we made. I think you could just look to get out of that whenever you feel like you've got the profit you want. I'm staying in at least through tomorrow, and then I'll probably close the trade out on Wednesday morning and not take a chance that an announcement by Jerome Powell on Wednesday could tank the market and see Home Depot go down below our short call strike price. So regardless of what Home Depot does tomorrow, I will get out at the very latest. The very latest on Wednesday morning, I will be getting out of that one. We let our Microsoft trade expire. We let our AMD trade expire. Took losses on both of those, but not nearly as bad as they initially were. Actually ended up getting a lot back on those. And so we exited that diamond trade, and then our Apple trade is actually looking good, and our Amazon trade on the our Airbnb trade on the triple play side is still pretty flat. I expect Airbnb to move soon. So all in all, looking really good. We've got a great percentage return on the year. Went through a little bit of a rough patch on the triple play stuff, but our last couple of weeks have been much better. And I expect this week to be good. And like I said, if you're a triple play member, watch for some additional trades to come out this week. Maybe not until Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, but I'll get some more trades out this week. All right. Nothing to report right now on collar trade stuff. I'm going to wrap up right there for today. I am going to make one announcement before I go. For the remainder of this week, at least, possibly beyond this, I'm going to be doing a recording instead of a live presentation. I mean, I record them anyway, but I'm not going to do the podcast right at 8 o'clock Mountain Time for the rest of this week. Most of this week, I'll probably be recording it a little bit after that, maybe an hour or two after that. My schedule is such that I just can't commit to being able to do it right at that time every day this week. The majority of our members listen to the recording and are not on live, so I don't think it affects any. It affects a couple of people, maybe a little bit. And then next week, I'll be back to a normal schedule, but I might go back to where I'm not doing it live and just recording it each day close to that time, but not exactly at that time. That we get so few people that are on live. Like I said, most of you go on and listen to the recording, so I may go back to just doing a recording and having a little more flexibility in my schedule on when I do it. But for the rest of this week, for sure, I don't plan on being on live right at the 30-minute mark after the market opens, because I may or may not be online at that time. I'll try and give you a heads up on Discord when I am ready to go. And that way, if you still want to join me while I record it, you're welcome to do that. So, all right, that wraps up today. I'm going to wrap up right there. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And I'll get a recording up tomorrow morning sometime. Thanks. Bye-bye.